Hello and welcome to another exciting episode of Can It Take a K26, the show where I take a variety of Nerf blasters and see if they can be upgraded using a K26 spring. I am your host, Captain Xavier, and today we're going to be covering the internal magazine blasters by popular request. I recently did a video on a shotgun-style Magnus, and so people, of course, wanted to know if it could take a K26, and I had recently acquired the other two internal magazine blasters, so we're going to cover them all today, starting, of course, with the Magnus. The Magnus was originally released in 2014 as part of the N-Strike Elite Mega line. It was later re-released as part of the Zombie Strike Z Squad line. It is direct plunger, has a 3-round internal magazine, and a bit of rail. But what we want to know is, can it take a K26? Let's find out. Alright, let's see what we've got here. Alright, well, the first thing that can be said is that it has a very long spring. Alright, so the Magnus has a floating plunger head rather than one with a rod, which is why it doesn't project out the back. And that plunger to rod is too small to accommodate K26. And from the look of it, I don't think you'd be able to route it out like I did on the Cyclone Shock and the various other blasters where I'm able to Dremel out the inside in order to fit. I don't think there's enough room in this one, just based on the way it's designed. I think if I tried, I would end up wearing a hole through the sides before the K26 fit because of how much smaller this is. Yeah, it's considerably smaller. But I do know that you can get upgrade springs for it, and you actually can if you can find a spring that's roughly the same size. That one's a little too big. You can actually just double up the spring, just by adding a little bit more spring into this one. If you can find one that's at roughly the same size and frequency. Or this one's actually smaller, so I could probably add that in there. It does, unfortunately, I have noticed, tend to potentially lead to jams if this spring ends up hooking the bigger spring like that. Then the gun won't work properly. So keep that in mind. You're probably much better off buying an aftermarket spring if you really want to upgrade your Magnus. I did a double up on the shotgun one, and it seems to be working now. I had a couple of issues with it, because originally I put it all the way at one end, and then I tried it all the way at the other end, and both of those caused problems. I put it in the middle, and I haven't had a jam since, so we'll see what ends up happening with that. But for now, we can simply say that no, unfortunately, it cannot take a K26 on account of the floating plunger head being too small. Alright, well, that's a no for the Magnus. On to the next one. Our next contestant is the Ray Jaku blaster. This blaster was originally released in 2016 as part of the Star Wars line. It is direct plunger and features a 4-round internal magazine and a bit of rail. But what I am very curious about is whether or not it can take a K26. Internals have gone sprawling. Hopefully I can figure out how they go back together. They could definitely have made that magazine hold more darts. That is just a lot of wasted space. Huh, I wonder why they did that. Obviously I don't think it would be terribly difficult to make one of these magazine fed, but not really sure it would be worth it. But let's take a look at this. So it's also a floating plunger, and whoa! Look at that. I have never seen a spring like that before, so that is their way of dealing with the ridiculously small plunger rod. K26 won't even fit in the plunger rod, so that is an emphatic no. So I added a little bit of spring. I don't know how big of a difference it's going to make, but hopefully it'll still be able to get enough compression and will still catch. Now, of course, I have to figure out how this blaster even bloody works. Well, it couldn't take K26, couldn't take any spring upgrade from what I had because of that weird shaped spring. It just couldn't get enough compression. And the little dart block is still giving me some grief. I may have to tinker with that, but other than that, that is unfortunately a no. On to the next contestant. Our final contestant for this episode is, of course, the Han Solo Blaster, which was also released in 2016 as part of the Star Wars line. It is also direct plunger, also features a 4-round magazine, and a bit of lower rail for whatever reason. And as it is I'm willing to bet large sums of money, it is just a reshell of the Ray Blaster. It's also going to be a no, but I wish to find out for sure. Alright, well, sure enough, it is just a reshell. Or they have identical internals, so it's not going to be able to take a K26 or probably any spring that I have. Hopefully somebody somewhere has found a spring that can be used, and if not, I'm going to hunt one down myself, because this is a blaster that I want modified. Because the Mauser C96 is such a iconic and beautiful gun to begin with. I want one for Star Wars reenactment. I want to get one painted up to look like Han Solo's. I want one where I replace the barrel with a more traditional looking Mauser barrel for steampunk cosplay. Yeah, it's just such a beautiful blaster. It needs to be done, but it definitely needs some upgrades. It also has the issue with the dart blocker not having a spring on it like it should, so it's just gravity supposed to hold it down, which is resulting in bad performance. The other thing I discovered about this one is that the AR is not easy to remove. This one has been screwed in, so I would need to drill out the AR, which means I would then need to brass the barrel, which is a whole different project, but there will come a day when I will modify this blaster to be all that it can be, but I'm going to need additional parts, so not going to happen today, unfortunately. Alright. Well, as nice as it is that these come off for, painting purposes, I don't like how it makes the handle loose and squeaky, so that's something we'll have to be dealt with in the future. Do like the internal magazine on this one particularly because the C96, the Mauser that it's based on, also had an internal magazine. It did not have a removable magazine. It was all internal and you loaded it with a stripper clip. So that's neat that that actually has that original functionality. So anyway, no K26, no spring upgrade from the springs that I have available, but we will see what we can do with it in the future. Let's recap. Alright, for those of you keeping score at home, that was a no for the Magnus, a no for the Ray Jakku Blaster, and a no to the Han Solo Blaster. For slightly different reasons. The Magnus has a really long, very small spring, and it won't fit, the K26 won't fit into the floating plunger head. These two have springs that are two different sizes. So it's coiled tighter than it is in the front than it is in the back, and so K26 wouldn't fit in the plunger tubes at all. I'm sure all of them can be upgraded if you have the right springs. I was able to upgrade the one that went into my shotgun using, I don't know what I used, but I found one that vaguely fit, and it seems to be working out, so there you have it. No all around, very disappointing. I was really hoping that this one at least would be able to have some kind of a spring upgrade, which I'm sure it will in the future. Alright, if you have any comments, complaints, ideas, suggestions, go ahead and put them in the comment section below, and as always, thank you for watching.